I get up out of bed carefully, so as not to disturb God, who lies on his back, his chest rising and falling, asleep. But, of course, God knows I'm getting up, seeing as he is dreaming everything. But he lets me get up and leave the room, trying hard not to let the door make a sound as I open and close it. I go out of the house into the night. What a phrase, into the night. These words that do not say enough, but which say more than we can fathom. I'm not used to the Brooklyn nights. What with all the houses, intersections, parked cars, and litter, I can't tell if I'm dreaming or not. I see all these houses sticking up out of the earth, maybe 50 feet, maybe 100. I see the immensity of the night above these puny houses. I want to laugh, even though nothing is funny. It's the laughter of abandon, of resignation to our meaninglessness. No, not even meaninglessness, but rather non-existence. For does not everything disappear in the magnitude of the void? Does not the void consume even itself? I walk down the street. I always walk down the street. There aren't many cars out. I'm cold. I think about God lying there in my bed. What right does God have to rape me? I feel the pebbles beneath my shoes. They're irritating. I pick one up and throw it, but that doesn't do anything. I kick another, but that doesn't do anything either. I look up at the sky, wondering if the answer might be there, but it's not. It never is. I make it down to Eastern Parkway, where there are more cars and the lovely amber street lamps are lit. I stand still for a while and listen to the cars driving by. Does the sound make me happy or sad? What is happiness? What is sadness? I can't answer these questions. The sound doesn't make me happy or sad, but only very angry. I start dreaming as I walk. I'm getting ready for prom, and I'm so skinny that my ribs show through my dress, and my dress will hardly stay on. I'm so hungry that my body's eating itself. My mom's helping me do my hair, which is limp and brittle and oily. I'm standing in front of the mirror, and I can see my mom's expression in the reflection. She looks at me with the utmost adoration, loving her little girl who is growing up, loving her for the tragedy of her life, loving her for the struggle she faces, and loving her. But that's just how she looks in the reflection. In real life, though I can't see her, her adoration is flipped. She is harsh, almost glaring at me, and she tries to make my hair look right, blaming me for my weakness and wishing that I was normal. Finally, she gives up and pushes me out of the bathroom, her heart the part of a city that's always shady, though the buildings around it are gleaming. And I stumble down the stairs to the living room, where I am received by my father. "Hey, kiddo! Wow, you're looking fabulous!" "Thanks, Dad." My father's hair is almost completely gray by now. He pretends not to notice. He puts on a good show of youth, but he can't hide some things, like how he pants too hard coming up the stairs, or how his naps after work last a little longer each day. "Are you ready to go?" "Yeah, sure." I wish I could hug my dad, but if I did, I wouldn't leave the house. Why is it necessary that I leave the house? Well, because I've already said yes to Martin Short, so he's expecting me. Plus, everyone in our friend group is expecting Martin and me to be at the pre-prom photo shoot. Plus, if I don't go to prom, then it'll show that I really am all the things my mom thinks I am, which, even though I am, I'm not allowed to be. In other words, I have to go because I just have to go. But at the same time, prom isn't as important as hugging my dad, nor is anything, and yet I won't hug my dad, and I'll do all the other pointless, stupid wastes of time instead. "Want anything to eat, Ani?" I glance up at him, into his eyes, trying not to cry. I know what it means that he asked that question. I know that he wishes he could say it. I wish I could say yes, but there's a whole everything in my head that I have to say before I can say yes, and I can't figure out how to say it. No thanks, I say for the 1,000th time. I'm all right. Those words are the nail in my coffin, and we both know it. My mom has known it for a long time. She's been trying to get me out of bed for 7 years. She gave up hope around year 5. I don't blame her. If it were me, I probably would have given up sooner. It's not worth anything to keep being hurt by someone you're trying to help if they're not going to get better. The first day I slept in was the beginning of the end. My mom should have known it, and she knows she should have let me go. That's why she hates me. Okay, sweetie. My father thinks about how precious and tragic his life is as we walk to the car, which is parked beside the curb. It's the most beautiful spring day you could ever think of. The breeze throws me to the floor and chops off my head, and reattaches my head and throws me on the floor and cuts off my limbs and screams at me, screams at me, screams at me. Do you see now what life is? Do you understand, you foul creature? You ungrateful creature, how dare you tread upon this divinity? You are not welcome here. Remain in your ocean of darkness. You will never understand a spring day. You will never understand bliss. My father thinks about his deathbed as he gets into the driver's seat. He gets a presentiment that he will outlive me, his daughter, Anya. So when I get in next to him and put on my seatbelt, he stares at me just a little too hard. What? He starts, embarrassed, and turns the key in the ignition. Nothing, honey. I'm just proud of you. You really do look so beautiful. Thanks, Dad. I avoid his eyes and stare out the window as we drive off. Our neighborhood is quiet, neither wealthy nor poor. All the facades of the houses smile wistfully at us as we drive by, having watched over us since we moved here when I was a little girl who could play. And I stare sadly at them, wishing that one of them could trade places with me, but knowing that, if it did, I, the simple house, would witness the gradual demise of a little girl just the same. Author's note. I've decided to cut out a bunch of stuff from this part. Anya just has a psychotic break for a really long time, and I don't think this is the right place to include all of that. If you want to get an idea of what she went through, I recommend chopping off your head and putting it in a blender and blending your head and then drinking it. Somehow, I've wandered all the way over to J Street Metrotech. I open my eyes as the A train pulls in. The windows flash past me as the train slows down. There aren't many people on the train, and there aren't many people in the station. There's a lump covered in rags on the bench, slumped over so that it's spilling out onto the floor. There is no train, I think, stepping aboard the train. There is no noise, I think, as the train picks up speed. There is no breath, I think, as my breath is ragged. There is nothing, I think, closing my eyes. Am I tired? I think so, maybe not. I'm not tired enough to choose sleep over this, if sleep means that I have to be back at home, in bed with God. I've totally lost track of time, but I know that it must not be 6 yet because the A train is still running locally. I can feel the weirdos on the train all looking at me, wondering if I'd put out or what, while the working people are mostly just taking a little nap or drinking coffee or listening to music or something. They don't care about anything right now. I start listening to the sounds of the train, the knocking, bumping, and jerking. Let's say that someone performs this experiment, I think. They ride the train as much as possible in both directions and take note of all the bumps that they feel, at what time they occur, and so forth. Will the bumps always happen at the same position and time, or are they determined by other variables? Well, anyway, the strangely rhythmic motion makes me dream. I'm at Faye's house, along with the rest of our friend group and our dates, and I'm staring up at the sky as I wait my turn to be photographed. Martin Short stands beside me, nervously twiddling his thumbs, wondering what he should do to get a kiss from me tonight. Should he try to hold my hand now? He looks around to see if the other couples are holding their date's hand. The only people holding hands are the couples. Martin looks away, slightly disappointed and embarrassed, glancing at my face from time to time to see if I had noticed his train of thought. I hadn't. Besides, why would he even want to kiss me? I'm ugly. I'm thinking about my 19-year-old self and how I hope I will get to live that long. But secretly, I know that I'm going to die soon. See, It's because of the way that the wind is purple. I can see the wind as we stand around in Faye's backyard, just talking and laughing. Only I'm not doing either of those things. I'm just watching the purple wind dancing with the branches of the trees, which have bloomed and yet are tired. What is it like to be awake? What is it like to walk down the street unfettered by nightmares? I see the 19-year-old Anya looking back on a time when she was happy. There were many times, but the best was when she was a small child and had to be pushed around everywhere in a stroller. Well, her dad got her this special seat that could go on his bike, and he would take Anya and her big sister Lucy on bike rides. They would bike from their home all the way to the library, and Anya couldn't really make heads or tails of all the things rushing past her eyes, but she felt like she was happy. And she didn't know what it was that was streaming over her head, but it felt good, and it kept her at a nice temperature. And she liked that she didn't have anything to do. She could just sit there, and when they got to the library, her dad would take her out of the special seat, and he would look at her as if it were she who had done all the biking. And her big sister Lucy was so strong and fast. Anya couldn't even close to keep up with her in a race. She'd always fall over. But Lucy didn't give her a hard time about it because she knew that she herself had once been a small child, and she knew that Anya wouldn't stay a child for long. But I'm still a child, I think, as Faye's parents signal to Martin and me that it's our turn. I can't see it quite right, but I know that if you really looked at me, really looked at everyone, you'd see that we're all just babies who have learned how to pretend not to be babies. As if that's something noteworthy or whatever. Martin and I go and stand against the nice wall of the Ericksons' garage, which is painted a beautiful turquoise. We put our arms around each other and try to look happy. What sorts of problems does Martin have? I look at his face all wrinkled up into a smile, his thin, lanky body, his small, beady eyes. In his eyes I see the memories we share between us. Memories of faint moments, so blurry now that they might as well not be real, but not completely gone yet. Memories of an intersection on a rainy day besides a pink and purple playground. Memories of the inside of a car as it drives down the road. Memories of walking through a forest path infested with mosquitoes and clinging tightly to her hand as you run out into the open. I look into Martin's eyes and I understand that I'm inhabiting his body, and he mine. Our eyes grow wider and we have to look away, back at the cameras and our friends, who are all just goofing off in utter bliss. Oh, to be young and ignorant of death. I start doing something that's halfway between laughter and tears, and I can feel that Martin's going through a similar experience. We don't know what to do. Why won't time stop? Why must a moment always flood into the next? Why are we being ushered over to the rest of our friends? Why is another couple now standing against the turquoise wall where we had just been standing a moment before? They've taken the epiphany away from us. I look at Martin and I can see by the desperation in his eyes that it's gone away, possibly for good. Then why did it come in the first place? I want to cry, but the breeze has turned orange and the sky is impermeable. No, not impermeable. There's nothing beyond the sky. Try showing me anything beyond the sky. It will always be the sky above our heads and the earth below our feet. I'm feeling so woozy. I see myself getting off the train at Utica Avenue instead of Ralph because I can't ride the train anymore or else I'm going to throw myself down onto the tracks. I'm walking back home down Fulton Street as the sky is just barely beginning to lighten. I'm not quite sure that I'm walking, just as I'm not quite sure that I'm tired. I can't tell if my legs are being submerged in the concrete. I remember all the times I've died after standing up rapidly, the blood flowing to my head and the sudden pressure differential sending my body into a rainbow static from which I only appear to return. It takes me less than a half hour, but more than 20 minutes to get back to my place on Dean Street. And when I'm letting myself in, the sky is now mostly dark, but for a slight grayness in the east. It's going to be a gray day. I come down the hallway and through the door to my apartment, As I open the door to my bedroom, I stir from underneath the blankets and squint up at God, who's smiling down at me. "Did I wake you?" says God. "Where did you go? Where have you been?" "I needed to take a walk," says God, taking off his shoes and jacket and lying back down beside me. I relax, putting my arms around God's waist. "You were gone for so long. Weren't you cold? Are you all right?" "I'm sorry, Ani. Oh, come here. Oh." God scoops me up in an embrace and kisses my forehead and cheeks. I steal a kiss from God's lips. Soon we're play wrestling until I give up and let God have me. I laugh and laugh as God fills me up with joy. I fall back asleep without realizing it. The first thing I dream is that I'm being tickled by God.